Wouldn't it be amazing to dive into life with a yes, I can attitude every day? In this episode of Thin Thinking, I have a conversation with business and life coach Cathy Alessandra, who created a yes, I can attitude with regards to weight release a number of years ago, but also completely changed her life. She discusses what it took to shift a life that wasn't the life of her dreams to one that was, and gives some tips on how you can too. So come on in. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Sound good? Let's get started. Hey y'all, it's the last week of July. Come on in. This is when things really begin to heat up here in Los Angeles. I don't know where you are in the world. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, I think it's, getting colder, but here we are definitely feeling the heat. And also, weirdly enough, with Los Angeles, I believe in some of the schools around the country, public schools at least, kids are heading back to school in a couple of weeks. And it's my son's senior year this year. So it's with misty eyes I prepare for his final school year. And I don't know about you, if you're a parent or if you've guided kids through the life process, but definitely this is a year I want to savor and try to take advantage of. But I also know at the same time, with a senior and that senioritis, the last thing he's going to want to do is be hanging out with his mama. So I'm trying to navigate all of that and life. So just and the college application process for the last time. Thank you. The last time, crawling across the finish line. So wish me luck. And then I'm going to have to pay for college. So I guess that's another marathon in and of itself. So my guest today, speaking of life, is someone I cannot wait to introduce you to. She is a real go-getter and someone who really had the courage to turn her life around. And she helps other women do the same, as well as really elevate their businesses. Cathy Alessandra, known as the Yes I Can coach, is a dynamic, innovative woman who inspires her international clients and audiences into action. An entrepreneur for over 23 plus years, Cathy has owned and published 2 magazines and has 2 best-selling books on Amazon, with her 3rd book, Dare to Be You, You Were Born to Be Brave, Bold, and Fabulous, released in the fall of 2019. She coaches entrepreneurs around the world using her signature Yes method and success system. Her energetic style provides an interactive experience for business owners who want to take their businesses and life to the next level. She shares her experience on topics ranging from marketing and networking to leadership and work-life balance. Let's introduce Cathy. Well, welcome, Cathy. It's so great to have you on. Thank you for being on the Thin Thinking podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
I know. I'm trying to remember how long it's been, because when I met you, you've really transformed your life and evolved in so many ways. Like, from where we had our initial conversation probably over 10 years ago to where you are today. I mean, leaps and bounds. So I think of you as somebody who is fearless in many ways. I mean, you sit with your fear, you own your fear, but you move through it and don't let it hold you back. And I think a lot of our listeners would be inspired by what you have to say. But I remember, so when I think you had your publishing company, like you had a couple of publishing companies at that point, but then you kind of had a personal inner revolution and really began the Yes, I Can. So I would love for you to kind of walk through that story, or whatever you want to, for our listeners to hear it, because I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah. Well, it's really, it's interesting. You were the catalyst of that, right?
Well, I don't want to take full responsibility.
Okay. Well, you dropped. So let's back up. Let's back up to whenever it was that I took that. It was a full day workshop that you had done, and you had us visualize ourselves. And you had us visualize, ourselves in 3 months and in 6 months. And I couldn't see it. There was just nothing there. And then you had to visualize ourselves in a year. And a year from that time, I knew I was going to be on a stage in front of about 250 women, hosting my own event. And I pictured myself on that stage in a pink sparkly dress. I'm all about the sparkle. Anything that's sparkly.
You are. I've been to a lot of your events, and they are very sparkly.
Yeah, very sparkly. And that's really what the catalyst was. And it was just starting small and, one foot in front of the other. And
can I ask you, when you had that vision, when you said you knew you were going to stand in front of 250 women, was that new in the vision, or was that something you knew was going to happen? And
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. So when you said, see yourself in 12 months, I actually pictured myself on that stage that I had been on before. This was an event that I did, for a number of years. So I knew what it felt like to stand on that stage and look out at those women. And so I actually visualized the audience, right? It was visualizing myself in that dress, looking out at the audience.
And how that would feel.
Yeah, exactly. And that happened. I mean, I'll get to that point, but that did happen. So about 2 weeks after your workshop that day.
Yeah, that was a shift, I think, that you came to.
Oh, it was a huge shift. It was a huge shift. And I started just eating better. I started moving. I was in the gym a couple of weeks later. It was the Sunday before Thanksgiving. So there was like nobody else there in the Sunday afternoon before Thanksgiving. It was a women's only gym too. So, right. And there was this whole bank of mirrors in front of me, and I was on the treadmill huffing and puffing, and, I'm going to do this. And a woman walked in behind me. She had on a black t-shirt that had bling sparkly writing, and across it, it said, "One woman can." And I thought, heck yeah, one woman can. I can. Yes, I can. And that is literally how the Yes, I Can movement was born. It was right? It was that mindset shift. You had started it. I was in that process, and just moving forward with that. And I actually I didn't lose all the weight in that year, but I lost about 60 pounds.
It was a considerable amount of weight.
Yeah. It was. I mean, I had bought a dress, and I actually, the pink sparkly dress, and I actually had it hanging. So during the year I could see it. Well, then I had to go return that and buy another one because it went down another size. So by the time a year came from that, I was on that stage, and I will never forget that feeling. In fact, I had the song play, "I Got a Feeling." And I came out and in my blinged out pink dress.
I was at that event. It was magical.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely a moment in time for me. It felt like it was huge. And at that same time, there was a lot of stuff going on. My marriage was kind of hitting the skids. My son was having some issues. My business was doing okay, but my own mindset around the business and my success, because of just my history. And I mean, I've been doing the magazines for, gosh, almost probably 18, 19 years by that point. So anyway, that's kind of how Yes, I Can started. And
that's amazing. And so now how has it evolved? So if you were going to say to, like, you've started this movement of Yes, I Can, you coach from Yes, I Can, right? You coach women business owners particularly. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What would you say, like, because you've also mastered your weight, what would you say the Yes, I Can mindset is about? Like, is it about moving through negativity? Like, when you're working with people, like how are you pulling them forward, or how are you presenting Yes, I Can for them?
Right. So Yes, I Can is really all about, I mean, it starts with stepping through your fears and getting uncomfortable. It's looking at not living to everybody else's expectations of you, but really stepping into what your expectations are of yourself. What do you want for your life? And I think, when I started on my weight loss journey, which was my first Yes, I Can conquered thing, right? It was what happened was in that moment, in that time frame there of that couple of weeks between you and that, was I realized I needed to work on me. Right.
Yeah.
I needed to quit trying to take care of everybody else and trying to worry about everything else and control everything else. The only thing I could really control in my life was me and how I reacted and how I responded to things. And that is really what Yes, I Can is all about. It's about taking responsibility for yourself. What's most important to you, where are your priorities, where are your values, getting out of your own head and getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, stepping through those fears, and helping people realize what some of those fears are. Because I tell you, there's things from, we do bring up some of the stuff from earlier on, but there's so much from our younger days that we don't even realize it, right? And it gets pulled into our current existence.
Yeah.
And we can't figure out why we're resisting something. And in reality, we're stepping into that fear because of something that was said to us years ago, or a way somebody behaved towards us, right? And so how do you work through that and letting that go? And it stops us in our, health. It stops us in making money in our finances. It stops us in successful relationships. And then of course, business. And so I work with women, particularly women, some men too, but to really help pull them out of that and see that bigger picture from themselves, and, really learn to come from a place of self-care and self-love, and be able to say, yeah, I can do this. Yes, I can.
Good. You mentioned two big things that I think are really important to maybe just dig into a little more, which is willing to be uncomfortable, because I think that so much of mindfulness is being in the moment, and often the moment cannot feel awesome. Often the moment is feeling small or vulnerable, or touching base, and like that ability to separate your self, your ego self, from like, well, I shouldn't feel like this, to that part of us that is like, but this is that, what you're talking about, the resistance that, I shouldn't be feeling this, or I can't be feeling this, but I am feeling this. And I mean, there's so much of that around weight. There's so much around food. I think for a lot of people, and I don't know if you experienced this when you released 60 pounds, because that was a considerable amount of weight to release, is a lot of times people get smaller and they start to feel very vulnerable. They start to feel less powerful, or less buffered from the world, and a lot more exposed. And those feelings can then drive either people back to eating more, or to have like an imposter syndrome, like that's not me. I don't know. Did you come up against that in your weight release journey?
I didn't on the way down. It actually, it boosted my self-confidence. In a lot of the things I was going through. And, there were some really dark times as I was going through all that. I mean, my marriage did come to an end, and I made the conscious choice to sell my magazines and step into the life and business coaching full time. But I have worked with clients who have felt that. Right. They're worried about getting the extra attention, or they're not sure how to face that and to deal with all that. For me, the reason I'd put on all the weight is I was stuffing my feelings.
Right.
my feelings of inadequacy, my feelings of a failed marriage, my feelings of, a business, all those things. I had taken literally all those things and stuffed it down my throat in the form of food.
Right.
And so by working at the same time of losing the weight, but also working on some of that inner stuff, right? The 4 agreements, the 4 agreements, the 4 agreements was I was reading that at the same time. That was a huge turning point for me, understanding that I needed, being impeccable with your word. I needed to be nice to myself. All this self-talk of you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, looking in the mirror and saying, wow, like how big are you? Right. I mean, that kind of stuff. No. We've got to come back in that self-love in that space, not taking things personally, never making assumptions, those are all things that help me to get to that better place. So I didn't personally experience that. I do know that there's many that do. And, it just kind of depends, I think, partly too upon some of the reasons why maybe the weight was put on in the first place. And then working through and, where you're going to be at as that weight comes off,
Well, when you're working with people initially, like with life coaching or business coaching or both, what do you see right now people are most uncomfortable with? Like, what are the feelings that people sit with that they're the most uncomfortable about? Is it communication to other people? Is it expectations, like they're too big expectations?
Right. Right now, a lot of what I'm hearing is people, there's so much fear of what the future holds for them. And so they're not sure where to go. They're not sure what to do. They are literally deer in the headlights. They're afraid to step further into their business because, they don't know what's going to happen in the world or, moving through these pieces. And so I think that has, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of stuckness around what we've experienced over the last few years, with the COVID and all of that. People are starting to come back from that and trying to work through with women and help them understand that, it's really up to us at this point. Are you ready to step back into your life and not use all this as excuse? Right. And yes, I understand there's depression and there's anxiety and there's fear and there's all that is going on. And I'm seeing that firsthand. But if you're willing to kind of step in and kind of take your life back, take some control over your reactions, your responses, how you want to see the world, right, and live in it and be in it, then you're able to move through some of that fear and that concern and look at the bigger picture.
Right. Because you're engaging your brain differently. You're creating a vision. You can start to use your creative brain instead of your fear-based brain, right? Yes. I see that's like kind of what you're helping people do, is get to that creative side of themselves where they can see things again. And
it's all about dreaming big. I mean, I have 3 pillars and 4 principles. And the first principle is to be big. And that's all about dreaming. We've got to get back to, it's like visualizing, right? I mean, I take this exercise, right? I talk about this story with you, right? Because if you see that vision for yourself, whether it's a year from now, whether it's 5 years from now, and really truly visualize that. I mean, that was so key, Rita. Yeah. Really visualizing and putting yourself in that. And then why is it important to you? And then what are you going to do to move forward? And when you're not moving forward, what's that costing you?
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, relationally.
Well, I love that, dreaming big. What about expectations? So that was another thing you mentioned, like discomfort and expectations, because I see this a lot in weight management too, because I see right now I'm leading a shift, and most people come in with diet expectations. They feel like they have to be perfect. They have to be good on a diet. And it's very hard to break people of perfectionism. And I'm sure you're very much entrenched in that in your work as well. I see, and I'm wondering, when you say expectations, that, most of our expectations on a subconscious level aren't even ours. Like you said, they're everybody else's, parents, friends,
right,
culture, media,
Right. Oh, that's a big one.
And we hold those ourselves to these standards, or, often I'll say, when people are feeling what I would call below the line feelings, I'll say to ask yourself, what is my expectation right now? And to start to train your brain to be able to say, well, I expect that I should be the perfect mom in this situation.
Right.
And then go, really? Because that seems like a really big expectation. Like, how can we lower this expectation so that we feel, not by lowering our standards, but just lowering that, like, whose expectation is that? Is that your mother's expectation? Is that,
right.
Right.
And that takes some deep work to figure out where those expectations are coming from. Is it a spouse who's putting it on you and saying, I'm not going to make love to you because until you lose, 50 pounds.
Yeah,
right?
That's a lot. That's very big.
Right. Is it a mother? I've had that, right? Is it a mother who's saying, you need to lose weight because you're, whatever it is, right? Other people, or those things that have been said to us in the past. Right. And so how do we come to a place of, living to our own expectations, right? And it not being about society or other people.
Right.
None of the should shame. Should shame is just the should shame is horrible. I in all honesty, I put on 15 pounds over the last couple of years.
Right.
And I made a goal to get that back off. I know that, health wise, and I want to, I held it off I kept 75 pounds off for about 5 years. And with COVID.
For you.
Yeah, it was awesome. So, the beginning of this year,
15 pounds is nothing. 15 pounds is nothing,
it's not,
right?
Exactly. But I had to even get back in that right mindset because
of course.
Should shaming myself all over the place. Well, because I had lost it, I'd gone dairy, sugar, gluten free. That's how I lost it the first time. I got to be exercising, right? And so I had cut out everything. I'd cut out alcohol. I'd cut out all those things, right? And was on this, super clean eating. And then if I would fall off at all, it was, should shaming myself all over the place. And then when I went to Italy, I was recently in Italy. And, walking a ton and eating pasta. Like I hadn't eaten pasta in, I don't know, 10 years,
right.
Carbs and everything, right? Or certainly not indulged. And the weight started coming off.
Yeah.
Now, go figure. Now, there is some difference, I think, in some of the foods in Italy.
Yeah.
And the amount of steps we were walking. We were walking, 17, 20,000 steps a day. And we joined the gym over there. But I think, I realized I was holding myself to such an standard because the expectation I had put on myself from outside expectations was, man, I'd put 15 pounds back on. And who are you to do that? And right. And so getting out of my own way, getting out of my own head. And since I've been back, the weight's coming off with ease, right? Because I'm no longer in that place of shame and vulnerability. I realize I'm human, right? Watching what I'm eating, making, empowered choices, and feeling good about it. So, we all go up and down on the scale, but also on the, in
life, and we're always unpeeling the next layer of the onion, whatever is up for us next. And I think what, we're learning is we're always going to have to peel back expectations, and we're always going to have to sit with uncomfortable feelings. But I think there's this idea that we shouldn't be, that everything should be perfect. So
right. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I love that you were just in Italy and that you released weight in Italy. I'm heading to Italy so soon, and England. So you're inspiring me now. Probably as this is coming out, I'm probably away. Hopefully I'm walking 17,000 steps a day too. So what is the most, like, if you have to look back, I know you explained one of your most amazing yes I can experiences, that very first like bling pink dress, pivotal moment in your life, right? What is like in the past few years, what would you say another big yes I can, something that you moved through that was very maybe you had fear around, and then you had to move through that and get to that bigger vision that you wanted for yourself? Because like I said, I think you've moved through a number of things
Yeah.
in the past 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the weight was just the first thing.
Exactly.
One of the big things was a divorce after
Mhm.
29 years of marriage and 3 children.
Right.
And, that was certainly, it was, thank goodness it was amicable, and it was a decision that we made jointly, but that doesn't take away the pain.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
There's still a lot of pain and things that you got to work through. And that took some time, and it took some tender, loving care of myself to be able to move that. And no, in fact, at one point in one of my dark moments, my mother says to me, Cathy, yes, I can. You're right, Mom. You're right. You're right. So, sometimes we need to be reminded, but I would think, and coming out the other side of that, it's, it was very much the right decision for both of us. I'm in such a better place. I'm able to have some of the freedom and some of the things that I was wanting to do in my life. And so it's, it's in those dark moments. I mean, it's like when you're chugging up the hill, right? And those next steps, yes, I can. It's like, what's that train? I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Right? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
As you keep going. So, I think that was one of the big things for me, over the last few years, probably one of the biggest besides the weight that I went through. And then I think all of us, just living every day the last couple of years here, when things were so unknown, and I really, in my line of work, as in yours, I'm sure too, try to really become more available to people to be able to hold that space for the processing that needed to go on with that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, maybe if like somebody was just starting out on a Yes, I Can venture, what would be the first steps forward that you would have them do? Like, what would you, what's a few, first couple baby steps of Yes, I Can?
The couple first baby steps, I always start everybody out with my 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars are self-care, sacred space, and get support. So self-care.
What's sacred space? Oh, well, you go into each one a little bit.
So absolutely. So self-care, it's not just the mani-pedi or the lunch with girlfriends, right? I mean, those are needed too, but it's also time of solitude and silence. It may be time of really putting in, I highly recommend people putting in some sort of a morning ritual or routine where they're taking some time to meditate, pray, read, journal, yoga, whatever it is for them, right? To really get grounded and focused on the day and set those intentions of where do you want to be and what are you trying to hold? Or listen to one of your meditations. I listen to those when I go to bed.
Oh, thank you.
I have some of those. Sacred space is all about setting boundaries. It's about commitments versus obligations. What are you feeling obligated to that's holding you back? What are the things that you're saying yes to that you really want to be saying no to? And therefore it's holding you back in the things that you really want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this, Cathy. So, and you call that sacred space. I love that. That's a great.
Yes, it is. We've got, it's nothing, it doesn't have to be spiritual. It's just, that space around you, whether it's, mentally, phically, emotionally, relationally, whatever it is, you've got to hold that space. And then that last piece is support. We are not meant to do this alone. And whether it's coaching with me or working with you or being in a support group of some sort or getting your girlfriend or whatever it is, you've got to get some support around some of those things that are most important to you, where you're struggling. I went to you. That was where my support started.
Right. Well, and you have a huge support group. You live in a wonderful community, right down in where you are. Yeah, it's great. I think it's so important. So tell us more about like what you're up to business wise and how people can. I know you're making a little offer if people want to get to know you and get the Yes I Can woman within themselves.
Yes.
You can go into show notes. Now, what's going to be in show notes, Cathy? It's going to be tell us about it.
Yeah. There'll be a URL. So I have written the Yes Manifesto, which is right. It's all about living your yes. Who are you? What are you going to do? And how can you show up for it? Right. And so it's a 1-sheet document that, really talks about what being a Yes, I Can woman is and how that can impact you and what you can do to accomplish that. So yes, I'm happy to gift that to you. And, hopefully
that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Print it out. I have it on a bulletin board. I do quotes on it every once in a while on social, but it's, it's important to, kind of embody that. Who are you? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And how do you want to show up?
And you're working with people one-on-one, and you do groups, retreats, all that as well, right?
I do. Yeah. Workshops, retreats. Yeah. I'm back doing in-person retreats, small, intimate retreats. So very excited about that. Group coaching. And then yes, absolutely. My private one-on-one coaching. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, great. Well, I will put all of your information in the show notes. It's been really inspirational speaking with you. Thank you for coming on Thin Thinking, and we'll have you back again to talk about Yes, I Can Part 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation. A pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cathy.
Thanks, Cathy. And don't forget to grab Cathy's free offer in the show notes of this episode. All right, everyone, let's finish July with a bang. Have an amazing week. And remember that the key, and probably the only key to unlocking the door of the weight struggle, is inside you. So keep listening and find it. Thanks for listening to the Thin Thinking Podcast. Did that episode go by way too fast for you? If so, and you want to dive deeper into the mindset of long-term weight release, head on over to www.shiftweightmastery.com. That's www.shiftweightmastery.com, where you'll find numerous tools and resources to help you unlock your mind for permanent weight release, tips, strategies, and more. And be sure to check the show notes to learn more about my book, From Fat to Thin Thinking, Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss, and to learn how to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode.